welcome back to our show. A lot of people who listen are older than 40, and they do actually remember some of those times where business was handled a little bit differently. We were just talking off the air about the passive-aggressive nature of people in Seattle, and I think everybody knows that even in a retail store, you probably don't tell somebody, no, I don't want that. You say, no, maybe I'll come back later. And that is not necessarily the easiest way for people to work together, but it is what does seem to be the presiding way of doing business here in Seattle. And if you're going to do business for a long time, obviously you're sustainable, and who better to talk about sustainability than somebody who has not only a well-sustained business, but also includes sustainability in their green construction. Mr. Paul Kocharhook, how are you, buddy?
Great, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's good to see you. And you're the owner of Pathway Design and Construction, and with 18 years in the industry, certainly you have a lot of experience in kind of this green revolution and the sustainability factor that is such a key component.
Yes.
Yes, you do. was that your non-passive aggressive way
I
of?
guess so, yeah. I have no kitten jokes to go with it.
No kitten jokes, and we're not going to lambast anybody for their age on your segment here. Why is it so important for sustainability to be a part of green construction?
So I think when we're looking at sustainability, we're looking at a few different aspects of it, and our landfills are starting to get a little bit fuller now. The city of Seattle actually just passed a law where we can't throw construction debris into the dump anymore. It has to go to a recycling plant. And so I think we're going to start seeing more of that as...
it's not like the worst plan, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's great. I mean, we as a company, we've been recycling. There's a couple places that actually sort the garbage, and they send it to the correct location for it to be reused in the future. And then, I think we also need to protect our ecosystem and the surrounding environments around what we're doing, and just looking at the pros and cons of the materials that we choose that are going into each of our projects. And then also, when you're thinking about our remodel projects, thinking about how sustainability can also save you money on the project, because that's always a key element, right? Everybody wants to save money on a project, and what better way to do it than trying to be sustainable?
Yeah, it seems like sometimes those don't go hand in hand. People think, well, if I'm going to do it green, it's going to be more expensive, and maybe that's not always the case.
No, definitely not. There's so many different avenues to explore, and I think that's kind of where, talking to a professional and somebody who can help guide you can be really beneficial.
So when people look at sustainability, I mean, you can look at green a lot of different ways. I mean, there's building green has become this, ocean of definitions. But sustainability maybe is a little bit more succinct in what people are trying to accomplish. What are some of the key factors that you feel really contribute to sustainability when it comes to building houses or remodeling houses?
Sure. Looking at carbon footprint has been kind of a catchword lately. We see it in the news. We hear it a lot. What is the carbon footprint of a product?
Al Gore.
Yeah, exactly. His what was his?
I think he had like the biggest carbon footprint in the world or something, right?
Yeah. So really, essentially, what that means on a real basic level is what's the overall impact of the product on the environment, and then there's different measures that have been put in place, essentially to give it a score, and the idea is to get the lowest score possible, to have least carbon footprint.
And so when you talk about those, I mean, you're talking about the score of, it could have anything to do with the shipping of getting a product from point A to point B. It could have, anything, right? The millwork,
Yeah, it's everything. Anything that's going into a building or anything that we're doing as humans, we actually have a carbon footprint attached to it, whether we're driving to 7-Eleven or do we ride our bike to 7-Eleven.
Yeah. Or do you, I get it.
If you drive, it's a bigger carbon footprint, right?
Carbon monoxide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Using gas. So.
Speaking of gas, a lot of people maybe are getting, there's always the sexiness of Brazilian hardwoods, which I imagine have a huge carbon footprint, seeing as you're chopping down rainforests and then flying them up from Brazil somehow. Is there lumber and wood that's more sustainable than Brazilian hardwoods?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that's a good question, Ben. Yeah, when we're looking at how the lumber's harvested, like you said, and is it locally sourced? So are we buying materials, say, from the peninsula here in the Pacific Northwest, or are we buying stuff from Brazil or Montana or southern pine, down from Georgia or wherever it might come from?
So it becomes a big factor.
Yeah, definitely. And then also, how is it harvested? Like you were saying, are we chopping down rainforest because of it, or are we replanting plants, or how do they actually remove it out of there? Are they using processes that use less gas as an alternative?
How does somebody find that out?
So FSC, Forest Stewardship Council, they have a rating system. There's a ton of information on the internet that somebody can go to, and there's a lot of links on our website as well that people can go to and find things.
Sure. You talked a little bit about where the trees are maybe being harvested from and the location. What about just the location itself? I mean, if you're going through and building a house, there's a lot of different activity going on. How does somebody understand if maybe their location, the site of their home or their build is acting in that way?
Yeah, that can be huge as far as the impact. If we're looking at, say, a lot, somebody's trying to do a new home, how do we reuse as much of the material that's on the lot without having more impact on? There's so many things that animals, how the water runs, say now to your neighbor's house, that can cause a lot of.
Or I guess if a creek is nearby and you're leaking gasoline out of a machine.
Yeah, how much dirt's being taken off site? Then again, you're using fossil fuels to get it off there or to actually move it around site. So.
Yeah, you talked also about I guess keeping things on site. I don't know if you'd reuse certain things that are on the site or if you'd reuse them on other projects, if you're recycling them to other projects. How does some of the individual, I suppose, aspects of a home, the construction materials, do they get reused? Do they get recycled if they're not used? Is that common?
So for most projects, it's very common. If we're doing, say, an addition on a house or a remodel of some sort, we're opening up walls. A lot of the studs in the walls can be reused. A lot of the materials that are in the walls can be recycled or somehow repurposed. Mm-hmm. It's a great way to save money and to do something that maybe makes you feel good on your project.
Probably just takes a little bit of time, I would imagine, to, I guess, you have to be a little bit more careful in taking the studs down rather than with a sledgehammer, but...
Yeah, yes and no. I guess it depends on the purpose of what you're planning to reuse them for. Mm-hmm. If you're just going to be cutting them up into, little blocking pieces or whatever.
Sledgehammer,
a sledgehammer works.
Yeah.
So, because that could, again, that gets into dollars, right? So if you're having to take too much time to dismantle something, does it pay?
Does that work for something like a roof? You think about somebody maybe who's expanding a house and you have all these shingles and different pieces of a roof. Is that something that people reuse?
Roofing's hard to reuse. It can be reused, but it's probably better as a recycled product, being ground out and used for something else.
Sure, makes sense. Any other big pieces that that you think people reuse? Imagine that's where a lot of the creativity comes in.
Yeah, I think some of the coolest things is trying to repurpose products because you can really be creative on projects. Maybe it involves there's a project down in Berkeley, California, where they used a ton of recycled or repurposed materials. They had doors that was kind of a very modern building, but they used doors from cars, automobiles, as a gate. They used windows of a Porsche as awnings over the doors. And
really?
those were ideal because actually I'm looking over here in the studio. We have this fabulous 50s poster with this cool windshield on the car, right? And it has a metal frame around the glass.
And it's behind me. I guess you guys look at that all day. I've never noticed it.
And that allows for the glass to actually have a little bit more structure to it. So it's a great showpiece, for your friends.
It's kind of like American Picker style, right?
Yeah.
I've watched that show once, and
Yeah, it's
Now I
like
finally get to
that,
reference
that
it.
came off a that came off a Porsche. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, your Porsche roof house.
Yeah.
I dig it, man. I dig it. So when it comes down to this, it sounds like we're all live, as you call it, downstream from these from any construction site. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, essentially, we live downstream, right? So we all can do whatever little part that we all can do. My grandma has a saying, many hands make little work. And I think that really lends itself really well to sustainability, that if we all do just a little bit, it can actually add up to a large amount.
Like riding your bike to 7-Eleven.
That's right.
Get your Slurpee. Paul, thanks so much for joining us as always. And for more information on sustainability and ways that Paul can help you with your home remodel, visit them at pathwaydc.com. Paul, thanks so much for joining us. Stick around for a few minutes. We'll be right back after this break.